rule out the bail petition on behalf of Julian Assange. Election day in the U.S. state of Georgia, where millions have already cast their votes. Members of the OPEC Plus have met once again to reach an agreement on whether or not to increase output in February. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, we welcome from the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The United Kingdom Westminster Magistrates Court in London Wednesday ruled out not to grant bail to Australian journalist Julian Assange because of flight risk. Thousands of people accompanied the hearing from the courthouse entrance with banners and shouts of "Free Julian Assange now." WikiLeaks founder was expected to be released on bail during the time it takes for Washington to appeal the UK's decision not to extradite Assange to the US. In the first minutes of the hearing, US Attorney Claire Dobbin urged Judge Vanessa Breitzer not to allow the journalist's release because he cannot be trusted. Assange is determined to avoid extradition, she said. Dobbin suggested that Assange might flee to Mexico because President Andrés Manuel López Obrador offered him political asylum. On Monday, Breitzer denied that Assange, 49-year-old, will be extradited to the U.S. because of the activist's delicate health situation and the high risk of suicide. The Australian suffers from clinical depression, which could be exacerbated if he faces the U.S. high-security prison's brutal conditions. The U.S. wants Assange to be extradited, so he faces charges of espionage and computer hacking. In that country, he will receive up to 175 years in prison. From 2010 to 2011, WikiLeaks revealed Washington's intentions to intervene in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Assange has been held in a UK maximum security prison since President Lenín Moreno's government expelled him from the Embassy of Ecuador in London in April 2019. And let's remember the important moments and turns of Julian Assange's case. Assange made international headlines in early 2010 when WikiLeaks published a classified U.S. military video showing a 2007 attack by Apache helicopters that killed 1,000 people in Baghdad, including 2 Reuters news staff. WikiLeaks published hundreds of thousands of secret U.S. diplomatic cables that laid bare often critical U.S. appraisals of world leaders in June 2012. Assange fled to London's Ecuadorian embassy after losing his bid to prevent extradition to Sweden, where he was wanted for questioning over alleged sex crimes. Legal experts suggest that his chances are poor. He served a 50-week sentence for skipping bail after police removed him from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he had fled to avoid extradition to Sweden over a sexual assault investigation that was subsequently dropped. But his prospects of avoiding extradition now appear considerably brighter. He has a family to consider, and his mental health and physical risk posed by COVID in Belmarsh prison, where he has been held since April 2019. The U.S. Department of Justice said on Monday the United States will continue to seek the extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. A department spokesperson said in a statement that while they are extremely disappointed with the UK court's ruling, they are satisfied that the United States prevailed on every point of law raised during the case. In particular, the court rejected all of Assange's arguments regarding political motivation, political offense, a fair trial, and freedom of speech. On Monday, Mexico offered political asylum to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange after a British judge blocked his extradition to the United States to face espionage charges. Mexican authorities have previously offered political asylum to high-profile international figures such as former Bolivian President Evo Morales. Assange is wanted on 18 charges in the United States relating to the 2010 release by WikiLeaks of 500,000 secret files, detailing aspects of military campaigns in Afghanistan and Iraq.
I firstly celebrate that the UK provided protection to Mr. Assange. that the extradition to the United States was not authorized. I believe that it is a triumph of justice. I celebrate that the UK acted in that manner because Assange is a journalist and deserves an opportunity. I am in favor of pardoning him. Not only that, I will ask the Secretary of Foreign Relations to do the necessary proceedings to ask the UK government the possibility that Assange is freed and that Mexico offers him political asylum.
And also, residents of the Scottish capital Edinburgh have reacted to Scotland re-entering a full lockdown after a sharp and rapid rise in COVID-19 cases, as the United Kingdom also faces a new and more contagious strain of the virus.
I think I'm not surprised it's happened again. I think that we probably should have locked down earlier last year to avoid this. I do think it's quite tough. We've been working from home for nearly a year now, so just trying to come out for walks as often as we can. I feel more prepared this time though, so I think it's kind of impacted me a little less this time, but it's still quite a struggle for your mental health and things like that. Yeah, on the walk down here I was saying, I think it's going to impact particularly maybe things like hotels who would normally have city breaks at this time of year. Obviously pubs that are all shut, this is probably quite a busy time, even though Edinburgh's usually quiet at this time of year. A lot of folk will come to city break and Christmas shop and sales and things like that. So I think it will have quite a big impact on the city.
Done before Christmas. Never mind this leeway over Christmas for families to meet should have been stopped. This is where it's all kicking off from again. This should have been over and done with ages ago. It's just people not behaving themselves. Pubs open and they've got a chancellor, help out to eat out. Helping half-priced meals and all this. This was a nonsense.
I also think they should actually be stopping people coming in from other countries. We are not allowed to go out to anywhere else, but there seem to be letting. I mean, we've got loads of people round here that are in Airbnbs. That shouldn't be allowed. They should be stopping all this. This is how they're never going to get a handle on this virus until everybody's in total lockdown.
And Germany on Tuesday prolonged and toughened his partial lockdown with stricter limits on social contacts as Europe's top economy struggles to curb high coronavirus infection rates. Chancellor Angela Merkel announced after talks with leaders of Germany's 16 states that schools, leisure and sporting facilities and non-essential shops will remain shut through January the 31st. People will be allowed to meet up with only one other individual from another household under the new rules, instead of 5 people previously. Those residing in districts where new infections are above 200 per 100,000 people over the last 70 days will be banned from traveling beyond a 15-kilometer radius of the zones. Merkel also admitted the measures were drastic and will pose difficulties, but stressed they were necessary to bring infections down to a more sustainable rate. The Norwegian authorities suspended the rescue operation for the landslide that occurred last week in a housing complex in the south of the country. Local police indicated that there is no longer hope for finding people alive. However, the search for the bodies will continue, although it was temporarily paralyzed after another small shift in the affected area. 7 bodies have been located and identified since Friday. More than 1,000 people were evacuated from Wednesday in a residential area of Ask, 50 kilometers south of Oslo, after the slide of a mass of 700 meters long and 300 meters wide of clay soil, which was carried in front of 1,000 buildings. And we'll go now to a short break, but follow us in Twitter at teleSUR English and also at Gladys teleSUR. Welcome back. This Tuesday was Election Day in the U.S. state of Georgia, where millions have already cast their votes in the 2 Senate runoff races that will determine whether the Republicans or the Democrats control the U.S. Senate. Republicans are banking on strong voter turnout to re-elect Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue and maintain control of the chamber, while Democrats have pinned their hopes on Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. The stakes have drawn hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign spending to once solidly Republican state that has become the nation's leading battleground. President-elect Joe Biden won Georgia's crucial 16 electoral votes by about 12,000 votes out of 5 million cast in November. President Donald Trump, however, is continuing to voice false allegations of widespread fraud that even his now former Attorney General and Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, along with a long list of state and federal judges, have said it did not happen.
I believe that everyone should vote. I feel like it's our duty, and regardless of how you feel about the issues or if you're ambivalent, you should still vote. Because I believe that you should always vote, I kind of at the last minute chose who I would vote for and voted anyway, even though I was tempted to just not vote at all because of how turned off I was of how the election, how this situation was handled.
It's very important time to come vote, you know. This time is really, really important, you know, because all that going on, you know, Republican and Democrats, so you can change the future of this country.
I usually vote Republican across the board, but this time I went Democratic. I thought they were more capable, okay?
I'm a Republican, they're a Republican, so I keep with whoever I vote for.
In Peru, cleaning workers demanded their jobs back after the provincial municipality of Callao did not approve the renewal of their contracts. The former workers of Slim Callao company prevented trucks contracted by the municipality from collecting the accumulated garbage of several days as a measure to protest against the unjustified dismissal, in addition to denouncing that they are criminalized for defending their rights to work and frustrating garbage collection work in the streets of the district after being unemployed 1,600 workers. And the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, denounced that the Simón Bolívar hydroelectric plant suffered a terrorist attack in the early morning of this Tuesday with the objective of destabilizing the installation of the new National Assembly and generating violence in the Bolivarian country.
Several plans were intended against the installation of this National Assembly. In the early morning, we were dealing with part of those plans. We suffered a terrorist attack at the main hydroelectric plant that supplies more than 75% of the electricity of Venezuela. At 1:20 in the morning, I was informed immediately, and we were in the early morning there with the Corpolec workers. Corpolec professionals putting out the fire of the attack and making the interconnections at a dawn. The whole country was back online.
And this Tuesday, members of Venezuela's new National Assembly took their seats, while the leadership of the legislative branch was elected and sworn in. Diosdado Cabello, the designated leader of the majority Homeland Parliamentary Bloc, presented the nominees for the posts of President, Vice Presidents, Secretary and Deputy Secretary of the National Assembly. As this was announced on Monday, Jorge Rodriguez, former Vice President of Communications, Culture and Tourism, was nominated for President of the National Assembly by the parties, making up the Great Patriotic Pole Alliance, which secured a majority in the parliament. Jorge Rodriguez's nomination was supported by the majority of lawmakers this Tuesday, and he was sworn in along with the rest of the elected leadership of the new National Assembly. Iris Varela was elected first vice president, Didalgo Bolivar was confirmed as second vice president, Rosalba Gil as secretary, and Inti Hinojosa as deputy secretary of the newly installed National Assembly of Venezuela. And the newly elected president of Venezuela's National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, called for national unity and dialogue, and also stressed the importance of the fight against corruption as key challenges facing the new parliament.
This is installation for the recovery, and we have proven this in the last 5 years. This is the stage of rebuilding. When you build the life of your son and you turn your son in a man of good. You know how valuable is that to build a life, to build a building, to build some ideas. To destroy is very easy. It is enough if you lack moral. It is enough if you use psychopathic structures of your personality to reach the level of the directive board of the past National Assembly.
Prior to the inauguration ceremony of the new National Assembly, elected deputies participated in an act loaded with symbolism as they carved portraits of Simón Bolívar and Hugo Chávez, whose images were removed from the Parliament Hall by members of the former opposition-led National Assembly. The official inauguration of the new assembly was presided over by the oldest lawmaker among those elected, Fernando Soto Rojas, who declared the session opened, verified the quorum, explained the procedures of the day, and formally decreed the installation of the new parliament. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries have met once again today via video conference to reach an agreement on whether or not to increase output in February. In the meeting, Saudi is going beyond its promised cuts as part of the OPEC Plus group of producers of support both its own economy and the oil market, Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman said on Tuesday. The cuts were a preemptive measure to mitigate the situation in the face of fragile markets. Two members, Russia and Kazakhstan, will be allowed to bump up their output by the modest combined 75,000 BDP in February and a further 75,000 BPD in March.
Late last year, but at the risk of being seen as a killjoy in the proceedings, I want to urge caution, even in this general optimistic environment. The level of uncertainty in the world remains high. Global oil demand is still well short of where it was at the beginning of the year. Demand for transport fuels, in particular aviation fuel, is specifically fragile. The new variant of the disease or the virus is worrying and unpredictable development. In many parts of the world where infection rates have increased worryingly, a new wave of lockdown and restrictions are being put in place, which will inevitably impact the rate of economic recovery in those countries.
And Iran sees a South Korean flag oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, representing the latest in a string of maritime incidents that continue to raise tensions in one of the world's most important shipping lanes. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said it detained the Hankut Shami vessel at 10 a.m. local time on Monday due to repeated violations of marine environmental laws. Meanwhile, a South Korean warship with an anti-privacy unit has moved close to the Strait of Hormuz. The incident comes amid tensions over Iranian funds frozen in South Korean banks because of U.S. sanctions. Several vessels have been attacked or seized in recent years in the Persian Gulf, and tensions in the region are mounting in the final days of Donald Trump's presidency. The head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization announced that the country can produce about 9 kilograms of 20% enriched uranium per month. Iran said Tuesday it had stepped up its uranium enrichment amid heightened tensions with the United States and after seizing a South Korean tanker in strategic Gulf waters. The Islamic Republic said it was now refining uranium to 20% purity, far above the level permitted under its 2015 agreement with world powers, but significantly below the 90% required for an atomic bomb, in another step that responds to the failure of global powers to comply with their obligations according to the landmark nuclear deal, following the unilateral withdrawal of the United States in 2018 and the reimposition of crippling sanctions against Iran. And Kuwait on Monday announced that Saudi Arabia was to lift a years-long embargo on Qatar, opening its air and land borders in the first steps toward ending the Gulf crisis. The state has been mediating between Qatar and 4 Arab states that launched an embargo in mid-2017 over Qatar's support for Islamic groups in the region and its warm ties with Iran. The announcements came off the eve of a summit of Gulf Arab leaders in Saudi Arabia that will be chaired by Saudi King Salman. Qatar's ruler is now expected to attend the summit for the first time since the embargo. And Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif congratulated Qatar on his Twitter Tuesday after Saudi Arabia and its allies restored full relations with Doha following a landmark summit. The move brought an end to a damaged rift that erupted in 2017. The Iranian Foreign Minister assured Arab countries that the Islamic Republic was neither an enemy nor a threat. A statue of Iran's most respected military commander, Qasem Soleimani, was unveiled in the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital Beirut this Tuesday. The Major General of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and commander of its Quds Force was killed in an U.S. drone strike in Baghdad in January 2020, alongside the deputy chairman of Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces, Commander Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. Recent weeks have seen tributes in Iraq, Lebanon and Palestine to the Soleimani as the anniversary of his assassination approached. The Iraqi parliament has also reiterated its call for the withdrawal of U.S. troops from the country.
We inaugurate this statue today in the presence of political officials and artists as a loving tribute to this martyr and as a commemoration of his memory, because he is one of the great men who defended this country. As a resistant society, we are proud to name our streets and squares after the martyr Qasem Soleimani, because he stood by Lebanon during wars, and he is the one who protected Lebanon with his weapons and missiles. This statue represents the martyr Qasem Soleimani, along with all his soldiers who destroyed the disbelievers, Wahhabis and Zionists, and all their projects in the region.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.